It was a quiet night, the kind where even the faintest sound seemed amplified. The soft hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional rustle of leaves outside were the only noises accompanying me as I drifted off to sleep. Life had been a whirlwind lately, and my body was begging for rest. I didn't hear the soft creak of my bedroom door as it opened, nor did I notice the shadow that slipped into the room until a small hand gently shook my shoulder. "Mom," my son's voice startled me awake. Groggily, I turned to find his wide eyes staring at me, glistening with unshed tears. His presence at this hour was unusual. He was the type to sleep through thunderstorms and power outages. "What is it, sweetheart?" I whispered, sitting up and brushing a strand of hair from his face. He hesitated, his little fingers fidgeting with the hem of his pajama top. "I had a bad dream," he finally confessed. Relieved that it was nothing more alarming, I patted the space beside me. "Come here. You can stay with me for a while." As he climbed into bed and snuggled close, I felt a pang of guilt. This wasn't the first time he had sought comfort like this recently. Since his father, Martin, had started working longer hours and spending more weekends away on supposed business trips, my son had become more clingy. Perhaps he sensed the tension in our household, the way Martin and I barely spoke anymore unless it was about logistics or our son. The truth was, our marriage had been unraveling for months. What began as subtle changes in Martin's behavior, missed dinners, distracted conversations, had escalated into something I couldn't ignore. There were nights when he would come home late, reeking of a perfume I didn't wear. He would claim he had been with clients, but his stories never quite added up. One evening, I'd found a text message on his phone that stopped me cold. It was from a woman named Serena, someone he had mentioned only in passing as a colleague. The message was brief but intimate. "Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was amazing." My heart had shattered in that moment, the pieces sharp enough to cut through every ounce of trust I had left. But I hadn't confronted him. Not yet. I needed more proof, or perhaps I was just afraid of what the confrontation would mean for our family. Instead, I buried my suspicions deep, focusing on my son and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. As I lay there with my son nestled against me, his rhythmic breathing beginning to even out, I couldn't help but think about the choices that had brought us to this point. Martin and I had once been inseparable, bound not just by love but by dreams and aspirations. We'd built a life together, or at least I thought we had. But somewhere along the way, the foundation had cracked, and instead of repairing it together, he'd sought solace elsewhere. The next day, I decided I couldn't live in this limbo anymore. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. While Martin was at work, I began digging through his things. It wasn't something I was proud of, but desperation had pushed me to this point. What I found was worse than I imagined. There were hotel receipts, emails, and even pictures, clear evidence of his affair with Serena. Each piece of evidence felt like a dagger to my heart, but amidst the pain was a strange sense of relief. At least now I knew. When Martin came home that evening, I confronted him. My voice was calm, steadier than I expected it to be. I laid out the evidence, piece by piece, watching his face as the reality of my discovery sank in. At first, he denied it, but the weight of the proof was undeniable. Eventually, he admitted to the affair, his voice breaking as he apologized. It didn't mean anything, he said, his eyes pleading with me to believe him. I was lonely, and we'd grown so distant. But I never stopped loving you. His words felt hollow. How could he claim to love me while betraying me so profoundly? The emotional storm that followed was overwhelming. Anger, hurt, betrayal, and even a flicker of guilt battled for dominance. Had I failed him in some way? Was I not enough? In the days that followed, we had countless conversations, some filled with anger and accusations, others quieter and more reflective. Martin promised to end the affair and work on our marriage, but trust was not something that could be rebuilt overnight. I agreed to try, for the sake of our son if nothing else. But deep down, I knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. Months passed, and while Martin made efforts to mend our relationship, the scars of his infidelity lingered. I found myself questioning every word he said, every action he took. Trust, once broken, was not easily restored. Our son, too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships, seemed happier with both of us making an effort to be present. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were living a fragile facade. One evening, as I tucked my son into bed, he looked up at me with his innocent eyes and asked, "Mom, why were you and Dad so sad before?" His question caught me off guard. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I heard you talking sometimes," he said. "You sounded upset. But now you're smiling more. Does that mean you and Dad are friends again?" Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged him tightly. "Yes, we're working on being better friends," I said, my voice wavering. In truth, I wasn't sure where our journey would lead. The road to healing was unpredictable, and there were days when I questioned whether our marriage was worth saving. But one thing was certain: my son deserved a home filled with love, honesty, and resilience. Whether Martin and I stayed together or parted ways, I was determined to create that for him. In the stillness of the night, long after my son had drifted to sleep, I reflected on the lessons I'd learned. Infidelity was not just about betrayal, it was about the cracks and vulnerabilities that existed long before the act itself. Healing required more than apologies and promises. It demanded honesty, introspection, and a willingness to rebuild, brick by brick. Only time would tell if Martin and I could weather this storm together. But for now, I clung to the hope that even in the face of brokenness, there was a chance for renewal, for something stronger and more enduring to emerge.